Welcome back to Seekers Network. This video is about diagnose disorders. Um, in terms of the mental health field, there's something called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, the DSM. They're up to their, I think, fifth version of it. And it lists all the things that they call mental illness or disorder. Um, Now, in relation to the survival response and all that, you can have physical things going on that create what they would call symptoms, mental health symptoms. And then you can also have the social skills threshold, your psyche or sense of self being overloaded with stress, and then that results in what they call symptoms. For me, if you look at in looking at these symptoms, it occurred to me that, well, okay, so again, if anything that anyone can do is a survival response, uh, and these things come from being overwhelmed with stress, whether physiologically or the psyche. Um, let's look at this: depression, anxiety, hearing voices, or any number of other uh, symptoms. And it occurred to me that they all could be generally categorized into a fight or flight mechanism or a survival formula. Sometimes there's combinations of both. Somebody's overloaded with stress, they withdraw from the outside world, they're not getting the answers they need, and the mind may start to produce anything because maybe it feels any answer is better than no answer. Now, in looking at this, because I've done advocacy work and helped a lot of people and their families who've been involved in the mental health system. So I have lots of experience observing, and there's a lot of people who easily merge with that system. Maybe they hadn't developed a sense of self. So if you have a system that's telling you you're broke, you're mentally ill, you will always be mentally ill, you'll never be able to stop taking medications. Well, to some extent, that provides them some sense of identity, um, even though it tends to be experienced as a bit degrading or invalidating. Now, why do I say that? Um, because again, if these symptoms, or what they call symptoms, are all related to some sort of survival mechanism, and then they tell you that this is an illness, this is something broken, without validating that it comes from the positive desire and urge to survive, then they're basically invalidating the person's survival efforts, and that can be interpreted as, hey, there's something wrong with you. It's not okay for you to survive, but we're going to help you survive better. And then you couple that at times with the psychiatric medications and whatnot. And I'm not even going to go into that extensively. Uh, but generally, from what I recall, I think they were designed for short term use only. And then they've kind of developed into this big industry. Some people have benefits from them, others have some benefits, but generally they can act as a type of a tranquilizer or a suppressant, so it tamps down the stressor levels, which then can reduce the symptoms. But I think what happens though is that the longer the medications are used, that it adds to the stress. Remember, you got these two thresholds. So they give you medication and it helps reduce some of the stress in the psyche, the self, but it starts to increase the physiological stress, whether it's stress on your kidneys, your metabolism, or the other processes that are being affected by that. And then as that physiological stress starts to build, it can then have the effect of bleeding back over to result in more observable symptoms for the psyche or the outward self. And I think from what I've experienced, this is why a lot of people wind up being resistive to treatment, because it can have this sense of being invalidating and demeaning, even though they're telling you, yeah, you're great, but you're broken, you'll always be broken. Now take this medication that starts stressing them out physiologically, and then that leads to complications. So a lot of people become adverse. And looking at all this, one thing that occurred to me is it's like, well, if somebody who was Catholic went to a Jewish mental health treatment center, some of the stuff they say might be considered as abnormal or symptomatic because it's not in alignment with the group. And you look at again in terms of our social interactions, our interactions with ourselves, uh, with nature, with other people, with the essence of all that is. And all of that can start to come into play where I think it's really not beneficial to cling to a diagnostic label as an identity. For some people, again, it's a default comfort identity enforced upon them. Um, I think it's okay to acknowledge and say, hey, this may be what they're saying. That's what you want to call it. Cool. I'm just trying to survive. That's a good thing. Let me come up with better ways to survive. And look at it from the perspective of a term that I came up with called psyche-social non-alignment, which basically just means that the self is not in alignment with that which it would be a part of. And again, initially looking at, there's the alignment with our physical bodies, with who we think we are, with our environment, with nature, with other people, uh, and then with the overall bigger picture. And there's a lot of different subgroups in society. So sometimes, you know, I think what could really help people is instead of telling them you're broken, you will always be broken, and that's just the way it is. Now deal with it and accept your lowly place in life, your lowly station, the lowest rung on the ladder that supports their hierarchy of business. And I think three important questions could to ask the person, well, who do you think you are, and who would you like to be, and what do you want to be a part of? What do you want to be aligned with? Because psyche-social non-alignment isn't always a bad thing. It reminds me of the canaries in the coal mine. The coal miners way back when, they would put canaries in a little cage and take them down into the coal mine with them, because if the gases or the toxins started to get too high, the canaries would experience it first, and the canaries would fall out. Then the miners would go, oh, we got to get out of here. So I think today a lot of stress is put on, the increase of mental illness and these symptoms and this and that, da, 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 da. And in many ways, these, they tend to blame the individual. You're broken, you're wrong. But I think that's the canary in the coal mine thing. Society in general, there's a lot of stuff that's not in alignment, that's not harmonious, that's not healthy. And for the individual, it can start with, what have I signed on to in terms of how I identify myself with all this agenda out there? Do I want to continue to accept the stereotypes and the archetypes that say this is who I have to be and this is what I have to do? Or do I want to reclaim who I want to be and identify how I want to identify myself? And then once having that internal alignment, start to look around and see, where do I want to be aligned? Where's my tribe? Where's my group? And recognize that not everyone is going to fit into every group, and that's okay. Democrats and Republicans tend to be socially non-aligned. They have differences. A lot of people have differences. That's okay. Democracy and freedom and the strength of an ecosystem is based on diversity and differences cohabiting and working it out. So I just wanted to share that part about, again, what I call psyche-social non-alignment as compared to the traditional method of broken, always broken, too bad, live with it. So thank you for watching this video. Like or subscribe if you want, either way. And again, these views are things that I've experienced in terms of what I've come up with. It may or may not work for you. If it does, that's cool. If there's anything that helps, great. If not, that's okay too. I'll see you in the next video.